Maris, you're from Manila. Now, does much jazz get played in the Philippines?
Not much. You know, there's some jazz bars here and there, but it's not like here.
Yeah, but there are places around the world where it's still a very big deal, and American jazz artists are held in the highest esteem, maybe none more so than Charlie Parker.
The Bird, as he was known, died in New York, but he's buried here. In August, a new group called Jazz Alive decided that more people should be celebrating the musical legacy he left behind.
Yeah, that led to 17 days of music and events, many of which producer-videographer John McGrath attended, so you could see more of the ways that Bird still lives.
There's music before Charlie Parker and there's music after Charlie Parker.
Charlie Parker changed the whole way that jazz is played.
Bird is super important to me.
When you go to Europe and you say Charlie Parker, they say Kansas City.
Charlie Parker was born in Kansas City in 1920. He grew up surrounded by music in what could rightly be called the nation's jazz capital at the time. A place where bands led by the likes of Benny Moten and Count Basie often kept dancers up all night.
I remember Claude Fiddler-Williams saying to me once that, in Kansas City, this is where you got your jazz license. If you really wanted to play, you had to play well in Kansas City, and then you could play anywhere in the world.
The young alto saxophonist honed his craft in bands like Jay McShann's, but soon headed off to New York City, where he and Dizzy Gillespie, among others, cooked up a whole new brand of jazz, one that emphasized solos and wild improvisation.
Now, bebop is like the antithesis of the swing era. It's a small group. They go in and out of key. It's played fast. One musician talked about it's like hanging on to a fire truck by your fingertips when you played with Charlie Parker.
When you study his music and you get inside the chord progressions and you get inside the melodies, you realize then also how brilliant he was as a musician. All whilst he had so many challenges in an environment that he grew up in that would make one think, how can you be so brilliant when you had all these things working against you?
The twin demons of alcohol and drug abuse cut Charlie Parker's life tragically short. Despite his worldwide fame, here in his hometown, this sculpture near 18th and Vine is one of the few tangible ways he's remembered today. Not good enough, says a new group calling itself Jazz Alive.
We want to thank everybody for coming and welcome to this kickoff celebration to Charlie Parker.
In an unprecedented show of unity, the Jazz Ambassadors, the Elder Statesmen of Jazz, the UMKC Conservatory of Music, the Mutual Musicians Foundation, and the American Jazz Museum came together to create a 17-day celebration of what would have been Bird's 94th birthday, complete with tours of local landmarks and panel discussions.
He began his career in 1935 right across the street at the Lincoln Building at the Lincoln Hall, playing with a group called the 12 Chords of Rhythm.
And naturally, music. Lots of music. Much of it performed by local players at jazz venues all over town. Did we mention puppets? They had those too. And of course, plenty of the poultry, which spawned his distinctive nickname.
Anytime you do a Charlie Parker reception, you have to include chicken.
Okay, you want to see a before and after?
Regardless of how it came about, the fact that the jazz community, when we hear the name Bird, we automatically identify that with one of the most significant jazz icons. And I think it's kind of fitting, because the bird is always flying, always soaring, always seeking information, and always looking, to survive, if you will. And that kind of typifies his life.
One of the highlights of those 2.5 weeks was saxman Bobby Watson, holding court in the Blue Room. Bobby brought in an old friend from Washington, D.C. for the occasion. Singer George Johnson Jr. says it was an honor to help pay tribute.
Let's visit our
Charlie Parker would go down as one of the greatest musicians ever. Anybody who's playing music is playing some type of lick that Charlie Parker created.
Another special guest that night, Kim Parker, Charlie's adopted daughter, was overwhelmed by the city's reception.
I mean, Bird has left his stamp on this town for good reason. The legacy of his music is incalculable. It's so enormous that you can't even really wrap your head around it.
Downtown at the Majestic, young trumpeter Herman Mehari proved that the torch has been ably passed to a new generation.
Bird is an important part of Kansas City heritage. It seems like we're finally honing on that, and this could become an international thing. You know, people from all over could come to celebrate Charlie Parker here in Kansas City, which is where they should celebrate him.
Parker's music is still being played in clubs around the world, but there's only one place that this happens. Lincoln Cemetery on Kansas City's east side is where the Bird was laid to rest after his body gave out at the age of only 34.
It's a very peaceful place. It's a very beautiful place. And it's become a pilgrimage to go there. You know, you'll go there and there'll be a wine bottle sitting there, somebody paying tribute, or read. People leave things for him.
We were framing up sort of the 17 days of celebrating Charlie Parker, and I love that phrase. Rather than a festival, it's celebration. We felt one of the things we needed to celebrate was him at his gravesite. And so we're very happy that we were able to do that and look forward to making that an ongoing component of the 17-day or whatever number of days it is in the future celebration.